The way Muslims have consistently understood Islam and the Quran and the Hadith from the beginning of the Islamic era is that the hermeneutic you apply is the life of Muhammad. How do you understand the Quran? You look at Muhammad's life, and that will help you understand the Quran. Are you with me? So that's how Muslims understand it. There's so much we could say here, but let's just take that and move on. In order to understand what the Quran teaches, you have to look at it through the lens of Muhammad's life. And that's why the Hadith are so important to most Muslims. If you look at the life of Muhammad, here's what happens. Early on, he claims to be a prophet when he's 40 years old. For 3 years, he doesn't do much of anything. And then for the next 10 years, he's preaching in Mecca. And from that point, he goes to Medina for about 10 years, comes back, conquers Mecca, and then dies a year and a half after that. In that first period where he's in Mecca, that's where he's teaching things that say things like, take care of the orphans and the widows and the wayfarer and the poor and the Jews and Christians. From among them you will find your friends. That is where you find most of this stuff at first. Interestingly, he had less than 100 followers during that time, the whole first 13 years. He doesn't have a fighting force. This is again according to the Hadith and the Sirah literature. Are you guys familiar with the difference between Hadith and Sirah? No? So, Sirah is the biography of Muhammad, biographical stories. So, kind of from beginning to end, the life of Muhammad. Hadith are little anecdotes, little sayings, incidents from Muhammad's life, things he has done or said. The Hadith are considered more authoritative in Islam because they come with a chain of transmission. In other words, such and such heard it from such and such, heard this from such and such, heard this from such and such, who heard it from Muhammad himself. They can trace the authority back to Muhammad, or at least they think they can. Those are the Hadith, and that's why they're given a higher status in Islam. So in Islam, it's Quran, and then it's Hadith. When Muhammad leaves Mecca and goes to Medina, at that time he gets an army, like that. Within the first year, he starts launching raids and battles. From that point till his death, he launches an average of 9 battles a year. So when Islam was peaceful, was when he had no army. And then it went from peaceful to violent the moment it could. And it continued growing in scale until he finally comes back to Mecca, takes it over, and a year and a half after that dies. And by the way, he still keeps fighting after he takes over Mecca, such that supposedly by the time Muhammad dies, Arabia is all Muslim. All the Jews and Christians are gone. So this is the stuff he's saying. This is the stuff that's in his life. And you can see a progression towards violence. Now the Quran talks about progressions. It says that which was revealed before can be abrogated by that which was revealed later. So if you're taking notes, chapter 2 of the Quran, verse 106, chapter 2, verse 106, and chapter 16, verse 101, both say that the text of the Quran that comes earlier can be abrogated. It can be replaced by something that comes later, which is a whole other discussion that we ought to have. Because of that, Muslims see the final teachings of Muhammad and the final way of life of Muhammad as the one that's paradigmatic for them. Now, what is the final chapter of the Quran to have been composed? Chapter 9. The most violent chapter of the Quran is the final, major chapter anyway, of the Quran to have been revealed or composed. So it works its way from peaceful to the most violent. This is the chapter that says, slay the infidels wherever you find them. This is the chapter that says, fight the Jews and Christians because they believe sons of God. This is the chapter that says, Allah has bought your persons and your property for this, so that you might slay in battle and be slain. Okay, the middle whole section, so like starting around verse 45 of chapter 9 says, if you're not willing to fight as a Muslim, you're not a real Muslim. That's what it says. So the Muslims in the West, such as I was, are raised in these contexts where we don't know this because the Quran is in Arabic. No one's taught us this history. These stories have been selectively left out of the biography of Muhammad as we've been told it. We're only told the bits and portions that our leaders and teachers want us to hear. And that's none of this. And so we come with this love and this passion for Islam, not knowing any of that. Whereas people who are coming into the faith, or they're really excited about the faith, they start learning the reality of what Islam is. They start learning about what it's actually taught. which is why 40% of the terrorist events in the West are by converts to Islam. And this is another one of those things when my friend David Wood, for example, is doing apologetics and he's saying Islam is false, Islam is false, Islam is false, and Christians run up to him and say, hey, you shouldn't do that, you should just love Muslims. Do you realize that he's stopping people from becoming terrorists when he does this? Stop stopping him from stopping terrorists. The ones who are consistently following Islam hermeneutically, the way it has been taught for 14 centuries, are the violent ones. Am I saying that these guys, the peaceful ones, have an illegitimate interpretation? Traditional Islam has always been the way the jihadis think it is. And they really never had a problem with that.